Jaime Reyes has found a job at Cord Industries, or so he thinks. When an ancient artifact chooses Jaime as his host, he inherits the power it holds and the attention it receives. With enemies coming after him, Jaime has to learn to coexist with the scarab and learn who he can trust with his new life before it's too late.
Rebecca, we both wanted to go see Blue Beetle. Tell our cinema community a little bit more why you wanted to see it.
I'm a bit attached to the character concept of Blue Beetle. I grew up reading some of Ted's comics and Justice League International. Ted Kord is an earlier version of the character who does not show up in this movie, but his legacy is discussed with the other characters. But the character that I got really, really excited to see was Jaime. Now, Jaime is a version of the Blue Beetle that was created in the early 2000s, and he's a little bit different than other versions of the Blue Beetle. The previous Blue Beetles had kind of relied on their tech, and it was very grounded, very human-based. Specifically, Ted's tech is a little bit more kind of think goofy Batman.
Whoa, it's like Batman stuff. Batman's a fascist.
But instead of bats, he deals with beetles.
And goofy meaning more along the lines of more like an Adam West type of a Batman, or?
It's a little bit more leaning towards that way. He and his buddy Booster Gold, they kind of make fun of superhero comics and like some of the tropes and stuff. So there's always a good time whenever you're reading it, whether it's serious or more the humorous direction it tends to go in.
Well, and that's interesting because this movie was more serious with Jaime.
Yes, Jaime's character tends to be a bit more grounded and deal with family issues and concerns that pop up in our lives.
Well, and there was a lot of family connections. We were seeing Grandma, we were seeing crazy Uncle Rudy, George Lopez was crazy Uncle Rudy, the sister, his dad, his parent. I mean, very multi-generational. And they spent a lot of time in the beginning really establishing his connection with his family and coming back home. Just issues that we deal with.
I think that was really smart because here's a alien scarab that comes to Earth, provides these superpowers. It's a very easy way to say this character is so far removed from Earth because of these alien powers and these concerns, but instead Jaime makes being a superhero relatable.
As if becoming a Blue Beetle is something that happens every day. If I unzip my sweatshirt, I don't think I'm a Blue Beetle. However, that's an interesting note. They did talk about the alien aspect, and I'm thinking, more ancient Egyptian, not alien scarab. So that was interesting to me.
So, yeah, I think that was kind of cool that they took that direction.
Now, did you know that they were going to take it that direction, or was that something that was new to you?
It's shown in the comics that Jaime is kind of like the bearer of the alien scarab.
Oh, interesting. Oh, because my understanding, you were like, in this iteration, and there's 3, and you were saying how many years has this franchise been?
The Blue Beetle as a character concept has been around for about 89 years.
Okay, so far before before me, I'm laughing, my grandparents, my grandparents probably remember the Blue Beetle. But it's interesting because I knew nothing about it going in. And had you not said, hey, there's 2 other versions, I would have thought, this is the one, this is the only, because my understanding, this is the first live action Blue Beetle movie.
That's correct. This is the first live action movie. A couple versions of these characters have shown up before. There was a Smallville episode when they were trying to create like this whole Justice League arc. That these characters would pop up.
And Smallville, for our cinema community who may not know, is?
So in the early 2000s, the CW tried to create a superhero show focused around the premise of how did Superman become Superman?
Correct. And several of my friends, one of my close friends, her and her gal pals would get around and watch this. And I remember every week she would come into work and she would say, here's the latest. So by extension, I understand Smallville and understand it was a good series. A lot of people really liked it.
A lot of people, especially in my generation, have fond memories of how it interpreted certain comic book characters. I mean, I still have a soft spot for Michael Shanks's interpretation of Hawkman.
Well, and it's interesting because you're able to go back and say, this is of my generation. Even though, as we said, it goes back 89 years. And so the theme is pretty timeless.
The theme is pretty timeless. And I think that Jaime created a fresh update for a character that not necessarily might have needed it, but it extended the life of a character into something that I think could outlive previous iterations.
And as expected, there is a nod to a potential sequel.
Yes, there
After the
is
fact.
2 post-credit scenes.
Yes.
One of them I would encourage you see. That's the first one. The second one is kind of a little funny gag kind of continuation through the movie.
Well, and we had talked about the acting, and the lead is someone you know from Cobra Kai, correct?
Yes, that was the other reason I was primarily excited about seeing this movie as part of the new DC slate. Zorro plays Miguel,
Yes.
one of the 2 leads of Cobra Kai, and he does such a great job of playing Miguel that I was really excited to see
Yes.
his take on Jaime. I felt like he could be responsible with the character, if
He
that makes
was
sense.
he was a great actor. In a lot of the up and coming and the younger actors, I enjoyed it. It felt like, he could be my son. And the joke we have with your friends, right? Not my kids. He could be not my son. And I really enjoyed it. Lots of connection around the family, lot of multi-generational. The sister, the grandma, the parents, crazy Uncle Rudy, right? George Lopez. George Lopez was amazing.
That's one of the things I really liked about this movie is there's a lot of layers to the intergenerational relationships.
Yes, very much.
It wasn't, I'm only focused on this person, like the grandma. I'm only going to focus on like my maternal relationships. I'm only going to focus on my paternal relationships. Everybody has a relationship with each other.
Well,
it
and
makes sense.
culture played a big part of that too. And if you're part of the Latino culture, you may see some very familiar tropes, if you will, or, family dynamics. And even I think just he's coming back from college, right? That's how the movie starts. He comes back from college. He's coming back home. And that dilemma of have I, outlived my family, or have I outgrown? That's probably a better word. Have I outgrown my family and where I grew up and who I was growing up and who I am now?
There's also several other little pop culture nods. I'm not saying anything, but there's a popular telenovela that is referenced.
Oh, wow. No, I think you see so many of those pieces that I miss. And I think part of that is just your knowledge of the superhero movies. Clearly, I'm not sure if I'm DC's ultimate audience. I'm not sure if they're looking to people like you and say, oh, they know this is coming out, they're so excited. Or if they look at people like me and say, hey, welcome to the franchise, we'll catch you up. But I didn't feel lost. But we've talked in the past in previous Cocoon cast episodes where the elbow, right? You and the elbow. And there were many your direction because I know there were things that I was missing. But I didn't feel lost. I didn't feel confused for that reason. And we'll talk a little bit more about how we felt about the movie beyond why we chose the movie.
I think the acting choices were really cool because these are actors that in the United States we might not know, but in their corners of the world they're very well known. In fact, the gal who played Miguel's mom,
Yes.
her name is kind of escaping me at the
Sure.
moment.
Sure.
She received an Academy Award nomination for a role in Babel. Even though it was an English language co-production, a lot of foreign actors were kind of slighted in this regard, especially in the early 2000s.
Oh, I thought you meant now. I thought, no. I mean, it was predominantly a Latino culture. There were, and I know you and I talked about it. It wasn't subtitles, but when they were speaking Spanish, some of the words were on the screen. And you had commented, you remember what you were saying about at different times they weren't.
Yes, there is definitely some choices to subtitle the necessary words, but I also like the fact that some of it wasn't subtitled. That way you felt like you were in that universe with the characters.
No, I agree with that. And versus, oh, we're just going to put everything on the screen. Now you understand it. You could understand it without seeing the words. The acting was, in my mind, that good. Rebecca, tell us a little bit about the cinematography. I know you and I had discussed, and there were aspects of that you really appreciated.
So the cinematography today was brought to us by Paweł Pogorski.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
That's a hard name to say, and we may not be saying that correctly,
I'm not sure I'm saying that correctly.
though you're trying.
I'm giving it my best.
Yes.
Powell has collabed with Ari Aster. For those of you who don't know, he did The Witch, Midsummer, and Beau is Afraid.
Oh, Beau is Afraid, and that was very recent.
That was very recent. I loved Bo. Bo was a good movie. But
You and I differ. There may be a moth or two separating us with the Bo review.
I think more like 2 moths.
I think that is accurate.
But one of the things that I thought was really cool was this isn't a drab movie. This is a very bright, vibrant, but still lived in movie. So I think that it's really cool to show that there's different placements in the character. We're not going to lie, not everything is bright and shiny and new in this movie, but even the things that aren't bright, shiny, and new have character and depth to them. I was talking with Teresa earlier. There was one scene that I felt like could have just been one note.
Mm-hmm.
And the color saturation really brought it to another level. Also, just the amount of detail and knowing when to focus in on certain things versus to pull away.
No, and truly, that is a skill. That is a skill because, as you said, it elicits emotion. It shows you where you need to go, but it wasn't like the camera was going, okay, here, let's look here. It showed the scene and the placement and the coloring. I agree with you. The coloring was really bright. I know you and I had discussed it had a little bit of an 80s vibe to it with the color.
This whole movie has an 80s vibe.
It has an 80s vibe. Do we have any questions from the box?
We've heard what you liked about the movie. Let's discuss what you didn't like about the movie.
Some of this movie felt half-handed. And it's really sad because there's some parts of this movie that I really enjoyed that really gave it excitement and freshness compared to some of the other superhero movies on the market. But there's also some parts that fell flat. I felt like the scripting could have been better. The acting is good, and they could have had more to work with. So I felt like that was kind of a disservice to the production team in this case.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think we had talked about the casting. The casting, obviously, great actors and actresses. It did. It felt, flat's a good word. I wouldn't say it was boring. I would say it went on too long. I honestly, it was over 2 hours. I think they probably could have even trimmed a half hour off of it, and it would have moved a little bit faster. Unfortunately, I looked at your dad, and one of the big scenes, your dad had literally zonked off. And I thought, oh, yeah, maybe he's tired and that sort of thing. And we talked about it later, and he said, I was bored.
I heard that complaint from one of my other friends as well.
Yeah.
He had managed to catch an early screening, and he said halfway through the movie, he was just done. He's just like, I felt like I saw what I needed to see, so he left.
And that's unusual. I know we didn't leave. We were engaged enough to stay. However, this is going to sound so cheesy. However, I know for me, I tend to get a large drink or a large water when we get there because I'm generally quite thirsty. And I know for me, midway through, I thought, oh no, I drank too much of that. Oh. And typically I say, no, just wait till the movie. You're so engaged, you know. Literally halfway through, I'm like, I'll just get up. I may miss a little bit, but okay, it's fine. And literally I missed a few minutes. However, I came back. I'm standing up at the side so I'm not interrupting somebody else's cinema experience. And I was just like, and there was a lot of action. I was still like, I'm just not feeling it.
There was one scene that really got me. And I was actually surprised it got me because so far these interpretations of the characters I thought hadn't quite convinced me to emotionally care about them.
Well, I laugh because I know what scene, and I love the fact you're like, oh, it surprised me. I'm laughing. I'm like, oh, it didn't surprise me that got you. But I did. I cared about the characters. I liked the characters. But for some reason, I never fully invested. I know the brother-sister relationship felt very genuine. I have 2 older brothers, and Jaime's the oldest, and I thought, oh yeah, that would be totally me ribbing my brothers, teasing them. It felt very genuine. We talked about earlier, there was good chemistry between the 2 of them. George Lopez was in the movie Crazy Uncle Rudy. honestly, he stole the show in so many ways.
That man's going to be a meme.
Oh, he was funny. He was if you like George Lopez, you know his humor. But honestly, even that felt a little reined in, but funny. It added the comic relief, but not like, oh, insert comic relief. It was very, very integral to the story.
It felt very organic to the story. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Well, if you have a crazy uncle, you're like, that's very organic. You have a couple crazy uncles. That's very organic to your life story as well. Okay, it is that time of the show. 5 moths are flying. Taunting Rebecca.
This is going to be a 2 and a wing movie for me.
Okay.
It's not a fantastic superhero movie, but it's not a terrible superhero movie. It's a very even keel, moderate superhero movie for me.
Right. Surprisingly, I know you're tough on movies. My moth rating is actually less than your moth rating. Whoa. 2 moth rating for me.
I'm really surprised to hear this, especially considering how much you like The Flash. And a lot of people were kind of feeling that way about The Flash.
I know. And truly, I like The Flash more. And I like the character. I liked the acting. The movie felt flat. Honestly, what kept it from being just even a 1 and a wing is George Lopez.
Seriously?
He's a half to a full wing for me. However, that being said, if there is a sequel, I would consider going to see the sequel.
Yeah, I don't think this was a bad outing for the franchise.
No, it's a good start. However, do I think it's a blockbuster, have to see it tomorrow movie? Not so much.
Thank you for watching this Cocoon cast clip. This clip is taken from our weekly show, which airs on Saturdays.
If you enjoyed this video, you might click on the link or head over to our main movie channel and watch the entire video for more movie goodness. Thanks for watching, and remember, movies are better together.